here in a Southern California evening. Yikes, yikes. Well, thank you for coming tonight. How many of you have a dog?
Yeah.
How many of you love your pet dog? You know, how many of you have cats? Cat people, you've come to the wrong movie.
Aristocats will be played next week.
Yeah, Aristocats are for you. So you come next week. So we have with us tonight Andreas Deja. Now, if you don't know the characters that Andreas Deja has created over the years, you've been living under a rock. Let's see, Scar, Jafar, King Triton, Gaston. That's Gaston's family.
Gaston's family is here.
And
Roger Rabbit.
Roger Rabbit. That's the Rabbit family.
Yeah. So a few bad guys in there, but you know, a mixed group.
Now we were laughing earlier because Andreas has a fantastic blog. If you're an animation fan. Now your last name is
Deja,
and the name of the blog is
Deja Vu.
And we were talking earlier too, when we were talking about your blog, that last night we showed Pinocchio. Any of you joined us last night for Pinocchio? I told you it'd be the same audience.
All right then.
They spent the night here. That was a masterpiece, hand-drawn animated film. And we're happy to say that Andreas is continuing the great tradition of hand-drawn animation. Talk to us.
I'm working on my own independent film right now. It's going to be about 25 minutes long. It's called Mushka. That's a Russian word for sweetheart. And the story in a nutshell is we have this Russian girl called Sarah who raises a Siberian tiger. And they're really, really bond. But as he gets bigger, there's trouble. So that's like the really thin storyline. There's more to it. There's poachers, there's her dad, her grandmother. But it's a really heartfelt story. It's all going to be hand-drawn. And yeah, I'm just going to keep on doing this.
That's what we like to hear. Well, it just dawned on me, for anybody of a certain age, that the word Mushka, remember the Mickey Mouse called? Miska, Mushka. Well, now we know how old you are. Anyway, let's talk about 101 Dalmatians.
Lots of spots to talk about.
Lots of spots. We have to connect the dots today. All right.
Very good.
Turn on you very quickly out here. Yes.
I know.
So last night we talked Pinocchio, masterpiece. This is a masterpiece in a different way because it broke ground.
It broke grounds. This to me is the most modern Disney film to this day because it broke ground in such a bold way that you have really modern graphics, modern art coming into Disney animation. Before this film, everything was kind of soft and carefully inked and beautifully, richly colored. And this one is graphic. This is more like an animated sketch. It's not really an animated painting. So it really broke new ground.
But we can thank the film before this, which is Sleeping Beauty.
We should do a Sleeping Beauty.
We did a few months ago. It's the same audience. They've slept here ever since.
So what happened on Sleeping Beauty, that film had a huge budget, as you know.
Yeah.
And it just barely broke even. And so Walt and his studio people really thought about maybe we can't do this anymore. These things have gotten too expensive. And the animator said, wait, we can streamline the process. So they came up with a technology called the Xerox process. You all know office Xerox machines. But they didn't exist in those days. But the company Xerox was up and coming, was copying images from paper to paper. So Disney needed a machine that would copy the animator's drawings, paper drawings, onto these cells that they would then still paint. And they did that.
And we can thank a gentleman by the name of Ken Anderson, you see behind us. Now, Ken Anderson had been with the studio since the 1930s.
Oh yeah, way back.
And here at Disneyland, Ken had a lot to do with the new Fantasyland in 1983. So the look of Fantasyland as we know it today, Ken had a great deal to do with. But Ken came to 101 Dalmatians and gave it this animated feature a new approach.
Well, these guys, people like Ken and a few others, they were really much, very much into studying what was going on in popular arts in the 50s and 60s. Picasso was big. Magazine illustrations looked a little bit like that, very graphic and bold. So he said, why can't we do this? Why don't we have to paint everything so painstakingly? The background sometimes in the old days would take a whole week to paint. We can treat the whole thing more like a sketch, and that's what they did with the Xerox process.
Yeah, and you said earlier how with the Xerox process, they Xerox the drawings.
That's right. So the animators were happy because for the first time, the animators saw their own drawings on the screen. Before that, it was always a reinterpretation. Inkers would have to take their drawings, ink them very carefully, lose a little bit of the life of the drawings. But with this process, it was the animators' drawings, so they were really happy.
So here's a good example behind us of that kind of sketchy look, and the background tend to correspond with that as well.
Absolutely. You can see that those black lines that define Pongo, you will see those black lines also in the background. So for the first time, there was a really positive match of background styling and characters.
Now look at the difference between what you see behind me and what you saw in Sleeping Beauty. So that really kind of illustrates the point.
Yeah, this is still the romantic fairy tale. Everything is very carefully rendered. This is like the animated painting. Under animation is the animated sketch, to put it very simply.
Kind of like this.
Like this, exactly. When you look at the coloring of the chimneys, it's not even accurate, It's kind of painted over. Somebody didn't do it right, but it was all done on purpose to make it look modern and new and fresh.
Yeah, I think this is one of Ken Anderson's sketches. And here's another one of Ken's. And you can kind of see that kind of blotchy color.
That's right. You just put in basic color areas, and then you add a little graphic detail with that Xerox line. So this is Anita with Perdita in the park early on in the film. And this is a concept sketch also by Ken.
And I love this. You guys remember the Charlie Brown specials of the 60s? All of those. What was the Halloween one called?
The most famous one.
Yeah, the most famous one that I just forgot. Thank you very much. Thanks for pointing that out. Doesn't that remind you a little bit of the look of the Charlie Brown specials? A little bit?
Well, this film influenced other studios too later on that followed the Xerox process. But it already started here with this one.
I love this one by Ken Anderson too.
Okay, for you guys, if you look very, very closely, this is the only time where you see Pongo drawn anatomically correct. I'm just pointing that out. Next slide, next slide.
Wow.
I can say this because I'm not at Disney anymore.
Times like this, I wish we were somewhere else. Yeah.
Drawing speaks for itself.
That didn't happen in rehearsal. All right, now you got me on a laughing track.
You got a good zoom in.
Next slide, quick, okay.
Quick.
Let's talk about Walt Paraguay.
Walt Paraguay was a big figure in the making of this film. He was responsible for the styling, but also for the color setting. You look at the title card up there. The colors are very muted, sort of like London. Lots of gray buildings, beige, brown. Then you have the occasional color pop, like that phone booth, just a pure red.
But you were talking earlier about the blotches of color. This next slide really kind of points that out.
Yeah, this is how he started out, just resetting color areas against each other and see how they would work, And then you would put the Xerox line on top of it. This is a more finished scene. This is just before Nanny runs out and the puppies were stolen and she runs out into the rainy night. Beautiful, muted color palette. The only color is that red on that leaving car there. Very poignant.
Yeah. And this, I love these. This is the wedding scene. Now look how graphic that is.
Yeah, the church setting with the stained glass window and that light coming through, but put down as a color sketch. Very, very simple.
And this next one kind of illustrates the point too. Behind us. So you have the park.
So here we have the park bench. This would be the color. The black line layout. And then we would see the final with the color patches over it. And you can see there is quite a bit of drawing in the bark of that tree and the foliage of the tree as well. But then you also have these very empty areas, and usually that's where the character would go, into these empty areas.
Yeah. And now we're going to contrast that. Look at this background from Lady and the Tramp.
Yeah, just to show off how far you've come. This is absolutely beautiful. This is classic Disney. This is like a Norman Rockwell painting almost. All painted out with beautiful light, no sketchiness, no lines in there. whatsoever, and then we go to something like this. Again, first very simple color shapes, and boom, you get the final scene with those black overlays.
I like this next one because it shows an interior.
This is, again, to show the contrast.
Very
Lady in the Tramp, right, very romantic, and this is very modern.
Now, again, look at the look at it. It's blotches of color.
And then, but interesting blotches of color. You know, you have a few color spots like that red pillow sticks out. There's a little green outside the window. But it's fairly muted, and that's on purpose to show London, really, the city of London.
I'd like to see if we can go there. There we go.
Okay, and then you have the Xerox overlay. Then it becomes a complete scene. And it was, you know what? Thinking back, it was actually a style that some people weren't too crazy about. They were so used to the Snow White-ish Lady and the Tramp softness. They missed that, but most people loved this because it was something new.
Right. Now, not to let the cat out of the bag, I should mention cats tonight, but Walt wasn't a fan of this, was he?
No, even Walt, when he saw the first dailies, it's not what he had in mind, and he gave Ken Anderson a hard time doing it this graphic, but it really brought the budget down. It brought like a completely fresh look to the film. The story was spontaneous, story was by Bill Peet, and it was a huge hit and saved the studio. So I think Walt warmed up to it later.
Well, speaking of, I just read somewhere that 101 Dalmatians was one of the biggest hit movies of 1961. And if you put it in today's dollars, it's one of the top money-making films of all time. It's pretty amazing.
It's an amazing film. It's an absolutely amazing film.
You guys want to talk puppies? Yeah! Let's talk some puppies. Everybody go, aww. There we go. Now talk to us about Rolly Crump.
So he was, before he became a famous Imagineer, he was involved into putting spots on the puppies. He was supervising.
How would you like that job?
He was supervising the unit that put hundreds of thousands of spots into that film, and they all had to be in the right place. It actually sounds easier than it is. Oh, you just put a spot here, a spot there. No, that's a grouping of spots. It has to move with the perspective of the dog and has to stretch as the muscles stretch. So it was actually very, very difficult and tedious, but there isn't one scene in the movie where the spots wiggle or do something strange. It's perfect.
Yeah, and I love how Rolly put little secrets into this too. So you'll see a little dog here named Lucky. Notice the horseshoe pattern on his back? And you know how the Imagineers hide Mickeys and names and things in the attractions? Well, they did that in 101 Dalmatians as well. Notice that there's a puppy called Rolly. Now, do you remember which one this is? This is the puppy that always says, Mama,
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry.
I could eat a whole elephant.
And now, speaking of dogs and things, does anybody notice the cameos in 101 Dalmatians? Anybody recognize these guys?
Back up.
This is very interesting. This plays an homage to an earlier dog film by Disney, of course, but these were also scenes that had been animated before, so they just plugged them in and saved money. So it's really both.
Yeah.
Save money, but it's also a tribute to Lady and the Tramp.
Right, but don't blink while you're watching the movie. You might miss them. Now, let's talk about Milt Kahl and the design of the Dalmatians.
Yeah, Milt Kahl was sort of the top designer at those, in those days at Disney, and he had a very graphic way of drawing, which was perfect for the film. When you see the top row of the dogs, you can see they have a very big muzzle, and storyman Bill Peet came down on Milt and said, that's not a Dalmatian, that's a Great Dane, make the muzzle smaller. So they had these internal arguments, and Milt made the muzzle smaller, and then these are some more sketches that Milt did down there in the lower row. Beautiful, beautiful graphic drawings. They are dimensional, but flat and graphic at the same time.
Yeah, they're great. Those are terrific. I love the expressions on the dogs here. They're great stuff. Now, I guess we have to talk about this character. This character. That'll wake you up, won't it?
Get a jolt is what
Yeah. So let's talk about who animated this character. That would be the great Mark Davis.
That was animator Mark Davis, who we both knew,
yes,
and still love, and had done Tinkerbell, had done Flower and Bambi, many characters, Cinderella, Alice, another female this time, but a really bad one. And but the interesting thing is that Mark Davis animated every single scene of that character. Usually you're the supervising animator, and you have a group of people, maybe 2, 3, 4 other animators to help you out. But Mark did it all. He did every single scene. That's why she's so consistent in the film.
Well, and I asked you yesterday, I said, you know, are there any characters of yours that you've animated all the way through? And
I always had help, you know, whether it was Scar. With Scar, I had about 5 other animators helping me out, because he was so much in the movie. With Gaston, I think also about 4. So it was all broken up. But Mark, with the speed that he had and being the artist he was, he did every single scene.
Let's talk a little bit about the background of Cruella de Vil.
Yeah, because you don't get to a character like that right away, you study it. So this is a book illustration from the original Dodie Smith novel, 101 Dalmatians. That's Cruella in the book. Interesting, not fascinating enough, you know. So that's what Mark started out with. And then he took it to other places and gave her all kinds of hats and hairdos and different coats. Just tried to make her an eccentric character, and really went to town with his character, you know, and he knew she would have to wear a big fur coat, because it was all about furs to her. So the one on the top right is getting kind of close.
Kind of close, but the next one in the middle, I love.
Doesn't the one in the middle look like some kind of an insect that's going to...
Like a cocoon.
That's a cocoon and some butterflies coming out of that or something, you know? So he tried everything. He did hundreds of these drawings before he committed finally to this femme fatale that she really is.
Yeah, she's getting kind of lost in the fur in this one.
Yeah, but that's sort of a beautiful touch, that she could puff up the upper part of her coat and her head completely lost in it, and then it would settle down again. These are nice things in animation to do and show great attitude. And this is basically what you look like in the final. I mean, how can you not love these drawings? Look at those skinny little legs, you know, and that gigantic coat for contrast. It's just gorgeous.
Well, the poses are fantastic.
Yeah, he got a little help in the animation by an actress called Mary Wicks.
Right.
She posed not everything, but quite a few scenes for Mark in live action. Then Mark would study it and then really caricature it and change the timing, you know, and put his mark on it.
You know, it just occurred to me. Did you ever ask Mark who Cruella was based on?
Well, he wouldn't say the name. There was somebody who worked in the fashion industry. His wife Alice worked in the fashion industry. And I gather that Alice Davis had a boss at one time who reminded Mark really of Cruella. He said, we all knew women or people like this who do all the talking, who never listen. But he never told me who it really was.
Now, I swear, I tried many, many times to get Mark to give up the ghost. After a long meal or something, get him
many years later,
he would never. He would never say who it was. But he would always say, she's still around. maybe he was a little nervous. You know?
He was.
But it was also a great combination of the perfect character design and the perfect voice.
Yeah, this is really interesting. That shows Betty Lou Gerson, and character actress right there on the upper right, to do Cruella's voice. Does anybody here know what other voice job she did in what Disney film? Anybody know? In what? You win. I don't know what, but you win.
Yeah, no, you don't. You don't win anything.
You said that yesterday.
It's the same one.
Wow. You've got a real expert.
Ladies and gentlemen, she's a plant, just to be honest.
Yeah, so Betty Lou Gerson, with a much softer voice, wrote the introduction to the opening books of Cinderella, and who knew that she could be so outrageous and eccentric, you know, as a character. But she turned out to be just perfect.
But I stumped you earlier today. Because he asked me, he said, what other voice did she do? And I'd forgotten about Cinderella, so I had to go up one better, because I'm a Disney fan like you guys. So I said, well, what other voice did she do? You guys are familiar with Mary Poppins? Remember when the kids are running away from the bank, and they're going through the dark alleys of London, and this old crone reaches out of the kids and says, come here, my dears. That's Betty Lou Gerson. I feel better now.
I had no idea.
That's right. Now let's talk about these two characters. That would be Mark Davis and Milt Paul.
Yeah, these guys were the best of friends. I mean, most of us have heard of Frank and Ollie, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson, being very good friends, working together very closely. But so did Mark and Milt. Mark Davis and Milt Paul were really good friends throughout the years, and often animated characters opposite each other. Mark would do Cinderella, Milt Paul would do the fairy godmother against her, and same here, Milt would do Pongo, and Mark would do Cruella. And they just worked together really well. they also artistically saw eye to eye. They were modernists. They wanted to push the style of the Disney drawing forward.
But Milt had a desire to kind of compete with Mark a little bit.
Well, years later, Mark went already to Imagineering, because this was his last animation work, and then Milt Kahl got a chance to do female villains. He said, he told Mark, I'm doing Medusa, Madame Medusa for the Rescuers, and I'm going to wipe your Cruella off the screen. This is what actually Mark told me. And then Mark added, of course that didn't happen. So, but Medusa is a wonderful character too in her own right, you know. Just that scene alone where she takes off her makeup and the eyelashes, I mean, something completely fresh and new.
But that wasn't the end of Cruella de Vil and the Rescuers. Tell us about that.
Because it was Ken Anderson, when he started on the project, he said, why do we always have to create a new villain? It's so hard for the Rescuers. Why can't we bring Cruella back and put her into these crazy outfits, and then that's our villain, our Medusa for Rescuers? But Milt said, if I'm going to do a new Disney character, I'm going to do a new Disney character, so this is not going to happen. So, but just for a few weeks, Ken Anderson experimented with this concept.
Now, the thing that I love about these sketches behind us is that we're all used to seeing Cruella in the fur coat. When do you see her with an alligator coat? Isn't that crazy?
Gator skin.
That's fun. We were talking earlier about polls. When you see polls in magazines like People Magazine and things, they talk about, well, who's your favorite Disney character, or who's your favorite movie villain? And talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, in most polls, there was one by Entertainment Weekly, I think it was last year, Cruella won again, because she usually wins. And because she's just so memorable and crazy. There's something so kind of ugly and eccentric about her, but you can't take your eyes off it because it's so unusual. And I had this one conversation with Mark where he said, he was reflecting back, he said, maybe those cheekbones shouldn't stick out that far. Maybe I should have pushed them back so they work better with the other humans. I said, no, it was perfect, Mark, you know, we just love her the way she is.
Yeah. Well, she certainly joins the ranks of all the great Disney animated villains, don't you think? Yeah. What is that?
Did I hear my name? Were you all talking about my impeccable taste in fashion? Of course you were. Look at me. I'm fabulous, right? I don't need you to tell me that. Wait a minute. You're not lumping me in with that group of beasts, are you? Oh, they're wretched. Well, actually, some of them got it slightly right. Except for that one up in the corner, that furrier one up there. What's his name? What's his name?
Honest John.
Of course you know it. Foul, yes, he is a foul fella. However, he does have a tail, doesn't he? Well, not for long. Focus, Cruella. All right, now. Well, let's see out there. Who thinks they have style like me? Let me see all of you. Boo! Cargo shorts. Flip-flops. Shame on you. Oh, wretched. Oh, no, my darlings. Don't you know that the event you were supposed to get dressed up for is this? Look, it's all of you. Now, there's got to be someone out here with some kind of a style. I must address this right now. This is getting out of hand, what's happening over here. I see them everywhere. Stand up, you. Don't be afraid. I'm only slightly nice. What is that on your head? Oh, those are wretched. Why are you all wearing these things? No one ever said that those were fashionable. Is that supposed to be some kind of a hat? Now, listen to me. The evil queen. Now, she wore a hat. Did she not? Yes. And then what does she do? She throws on a cape with it. Oh, really? Capes are so fashioned backwards. You know, even Maleficent tried to pull off the cape thing. Oh, she was so close. Are you hearing me? Oh, she had grace. She had style. She had cheekbones. And then, of course, she had horns. Oh, what a pity, because, well, we all know that there's nothing worse than a woman horned. I'll give you a minute to let that one sink in. There's got to be someone out here that... Wait a minute. Oh, hello, my pet. You're gorgeous. Hello, love. I love your hair. Do you see her hair? It is gorgeous. It's straight and all one color. Now, may I suggest that you dye half of it another color? How old are you? 9. Perfect age to do it. That's when I did it too. Are you her mother? She's agreeing with me. She said it's fine. Go ahead. Dye it another color. You know, Lady Tremaine took my advice. Oh, yes, she did. And then what does she do? She throws on fuchsia. Fuchsia, really? Don't you all know that color should be an accent? However, you know, let's see, Captain Hook, yes, now he pulled off the fuchsia. He only did it on the lower half of his body, right? And then what does he do? Facial hair! Ooh! It is never right on anyone, except for you, sir. Look at that. Grey on the bottom and black on the top. I love it. You've got fur all over your face.
Yes, he does.
Reminds me of a coat that I once designed and it kept me warm at night. Where was I? Oh, I remember now. For the rest of you lost glitter, you are in luck. Come on, let's hear it. You're in luck. Because I can give anyone a fashion makeover, even these two sorry imbeciles. Now, I use that term in the most kindness, I do. Now, go ahead, stand up. You should have anyways, I'm a lady. Always stand on the ladies' person. Now, come on over now. Oh, well, look at this. I've got my work cut out for me. All right, now, what's your names? Who cares? I don't care what your names are. Now, I have some very special fashion tips for all of you. Now, these things, I cut off the mermaid. Now, of course, she wore them a bit differently, but incorrectly. So, the proper way to wear these, please, go ahead, show them how to wear them. Put them on, do as I say. Yes, that's right. They're not supposed to be worn the way she did. This is how they should be worn. That's right. Seashell shoulder pants, say that 3 times. Well, it's the best I can do on short notice. Okay. You, however, let me see your hands. Ooh, better skin. Ooh, that's for the common and the vulgar. Jasmine. Brilliant. Now listen to me. Gloves show a sense of class, and I have them for you. Aren't you happy? Yes. Now, please, I don't want discount because, well, they only have 4 fingers. But go ahead, put them on. Yes, go ahead. This for you, this for you. Much better. Why choose such class, doesn't it? Go ahead. Oh, give them a hand! Give it a hand. Yes. Now, for the accents. Oh, I love accents, don't you? All right, now, this one I'm going to put on you. And you know why? To distract from those wretched shoes you're wearing. Are we in a tennis match? Then why are you wearing tennis shoes? Really? All right, enough for you. Got something for you, too. Oh, fashion is king. Don't worry, darling. Oh, look at that. It matches the ringlets in your eyes, darling. Must have had a good night, didn't you? Well, by a show of applause, don't you think they look better?
Camilla, I think this calls for a picture.
Oh, I couldn't possibly. I hate having my picture taken. All right, all right. Oh, there's all these cameras. Are you all ready? Because I'm always ready. Snap away! Enough of that. All right, now, let's see here. Are you all going to take my lessons and go out and be fashionable? Yes! No cargo shorts? No! then, I must go and create my latest masterpiece. Let's see, what do I need? I need puppies!